more resources. In the end, the heart of the matter lies in production costs, and that's why industry actors are so keen to diversify their revenues in order to continue producing the AAA games that the public buys before anything else. Grand Theft Auto 6 is then also brought up into the debates because after that new trailer, which you're seeing on screen now, released, and people just saw how Rockstar had people with realistic hair and even bubbles and beer bottles and animated to like painstakingly realistic degrees, dude. I mean, if there was any game that was probably worth $90 or hell even $100 plus at release, it's probably Grand Theft Auto 6. But the reality is that most companies besides Rockstar are not operating at their level, nor do they have the budget or time to take the care needed to create an experience that is just so ridiculously detailed like that is. And the truth is that most studios are one bad game release from pretty much dying, the same way that if you didn't know, about 50% of all new restaurants that open usually close within a year or two. And the reasoning is simple, because competition is cutthroat and you either sink or you swim pretty much. And when it comes to video games, how can the industry be convinced to make more shorter focus experiences that only have a single price tag attached to them, when Call of Duty and Diablo, to name just a few, are selling cosmetics worth more than entire new games? Shuhei Yoshida also spoke on Clair Obscur and all of that. Here's what he said. GTA 6 will obviously be a case in point, but if you take the example of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, the game is just as phenomenal visually, despite the fact that the team only has around 30 people. This is one of the ways forward, I think, because you can make excellent games with tighter teams and budgets without compromising quality. And I agree, I frankly think there's two big monsters in the room, if you will, that are destroying video games pretty much. One of them, yeah, that's the ideological, agenda-driven people stuff, the ones who ruin your games for political reasons and all that other nonsense. And then the other, just as destructive monster, is the greedy executive types that truly couldn't care less about the player experience, even if you tried explaining it to them. And those greedy exec types, they don't really care about winning Game of the Year or anything like that. Basically, they don't care about the art in it, if you will. Because to them, the only real benefit of winning something like Game of the Year would be to just slap that label on the cover of the game to sell more copies, so they can keep buying expensive watches and eating all the caviar they want. And none of this integrity and love for the media matters if it doesn't equate to more zeros in the balance sheet for them. But I am glad that consumer spending, as I showed earlier, did drop about 14% since last year, and I mean good. And I mean consumer spending as in microtransactions, not buying video games or anything like that, because the less people that buy that sort of slop, the less it will happen, hopefully, in theory. I know this will never be fully eradicated, because the truth is that these live service games like Call of Duty, Diablo, and more, they all have servers to maintain to keep their games running, and you need revenue to keep those servers running by employing people. I get it. So while sure they can try to justify these insane prices as to why they're needed to keep their games running, which in Call of Duty's case, the game runs like ass anyway, so where's that money going? That's a good question, but anyways, we're still reaching a point of no return here where the industry has got to hit some button, any button, panic, reset, even the nuke button. Just things need to change going forward. Otherwise, the gaming industry will just keep going down this very destructive path. Think about it, man. How many true single-player first-party games have come from Sony in the PS5 era alone? Let me count them for you. You got Astro Bot, Death Stranding 2, which is not out yet, Demon's Souls remake, Ghost of Yote, that also hasn't come out yet, but that's later this year, God of War Ragnarok, Spider-Man 2, Horizon Forbidden West, and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and oh yeah, Returnal too. That's 7 single-player video games. Well, I guess 5 technically, because 2 of them aren't out yet, but anyway, still. But that still shows you that instead Sony has also greenlit over a dozen of these live service games and canceled about 8 or 9 of them that we know of that are live service. Off the top of my head, they canceled a God of War live service game, a sci-fi based one. There was a Twisted Metal one too. Last of Us Online got canceled. There was one that got leaked called Spider-Man the Great Web, that's canceled. The Deviation game that lost like 80% of its staff, that's gone too. Operation Payback, which was supposed to be Destiny 3, that got canceled. Then there was a fantasy live service game that also got shut down, and a few more. I just forgot which ones off the top of my head. But the point is they've canceled more first-party games than they've released in recent years, and that's terrible considering that this just means that the PS5 generation has been far more barren compared to previous generations. Oh yeah, they also canceled a, what was it? A Horizon live service game. That's what it was too. I forgot about that one, that it even existed. But anyway, if you can't tell, I'm sick of the slop, and most of you probably are too. But since Black Ops 6 sold the most copies of all COD games and pushed the series past 500 million copies sold, as you are seeing on screen here, the likelihood that Activision Blizzard of all people will not be stopping their crusade until everything they make is a live service game, no matter the cost. But the way that the industry is going, we have some bright spots. I just hope by making videos like these that I can show people those sorts of games and people will support them so that we can have actual good, artistic games still being made in the future. future. Obviously support what you love. I understand that some live service games people still enjoy. I get it. I'm not calling it evil or bad if you enjoy Call of Duty or Rivals or even Diablo. But I think there comes a point where the predatory behavior of how expensive things are getting needs to be called out, and it does need to change. Or maybe none of this matters, and Diablo one day will inevitably have a Dark Souls crossover that'll probably cost more to buy than the entire trilogy of games plus their DLCs and then some. And that may sound like parody to you, but let's be honest, that's possible. That's not even close to being outside of the realm of possibility at this point, is it? But anyway, what do you think? Let me know. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy some dope video games, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Truth is,
I've been noticing something when it comes to the online discourse of video games and entertainment across the board. I've noticed how whenever something is doing great but doesn't fit the mold of what the usual types deem fit to be worthy of success, they suddenly want that game to fail. I recently released a video on Lords of the Fallen 2.0, how it's doing great, especially for a game that is almost 2 years old at this point. I spoke about how the developers asked the fans what they wanted and then genuinely delivered exactly what the fans deemed was most important for the game they bought and paid for. They didn't have to fix it. They could have easily just left the game as it was and moved on to the sequel to maybe implement those fixes into that eventual game. But they didn't do that. They went back and they did the work, and they swallowed their pride, and they gave people what they wanted. And the internet responded in kind. It sold better than ever. It moved copies. It entered the global top 10 bestsellers list on Steam by revenue, by all accounts. What Lords of the Fallen 2.0 did was amazing, and if you ask me, more games should lead by its example. But I've noticed another thing, and it's sort of the point of this video, which is that following Lords 2.0 victory, people got mad about it. A lot, actually. They got angry that something was doing well that they felt didn't deserve the praise that it was getting. It's not the only game. I remember when Western developers got butthurt about Elden Ring even existing, how Ubisoft developers and more were perplexed and salty that a game that doesn't hold your hand and let players do what they wanted in an open world, a true open world, not the faux open worlds that Ubisoft usually creates and ended up selling over 25 million copies in its debut year, and even won Game of the Year pretty much everywhere. We all know Elden Ring was a massive success. We cannot deny this because the proof is there. Everyone who played that game saw the magic. Their jaws gaped when they realized there was an entire underground world beneath the lands between. The game felt like an epic odyssey. Something we never thought possible was suddenly here. It existed, and it was real. As this article from when Elden Ring launched from Screen Rant says, Elden Ring broke convention, and other developers aren't happy. As they say here in their article, some of these game designers publicly expressed a dislike for how Elden Ring broke certain rules of game design, while simultaneously wondering why Elden Ring became so successful despite breaking those rules. They don't post the tweets out of respect, I guess, for the developers who were salty about Elden Ring, but I will, because I need you to know how uncomfortable truth really is. Don't harass anyone, by the way, but this viral post had Ubisoft and Guerrilla, that's Horizon Zero Dawn and Killzone developers, complaining about Elden Ring. One of these developers said,
"When I speak to someone like
Ring
you,
scored a 97 Metacritic is proof that reviewers don't give a flaming poop about game design. My life is a lie." Another would say, nor PC graphics, stability, and performance apparently. And finally, this Horizon dev would then say, nor quest design really. So these developers got dogpiled by people from the Arcane University for attacking Elden Ring. It came off as jealousy more so than anything else. And then players conveyed that how these developers and others responded to Elden Ring was showing the disconnect between what the players wanted versus what the developers thought were important. Since then, Ubisoft has become a flaming dumpster fire that had to be saved by Tencent, who will inevitably own the company whole one day. They currently own a fourth of it and dumped over $8 billion in investments into Ubisoft just to keep that bloated corpse alive long enough for now. Horizon Forbidden West sold less than Zero Dawn 2, yet people will tell you games just aren't doing well. Well, that actually isn't the case. Elden Ring, like Lords of the Fallen, are games that have become, for lack of a better term, evergreen content. This means that they are products that can sell over time at a steady and healthy pace no matter how much time has passed. I'm not saying that this means that every day 100,000 people are buying Elden Ring, but surely every day that game and Lords of the Fallen are still reaching new players due to the developers, listening to their fans. And like Elden Ring, Lords of the Fallen has fallen, pun intended, in the same camp, where the people who claim to be the positive beacons of hope in the gaming community always seem to turn heel and become very evil, and dare I say angry, when a game does well that they don't seem to want to do well. Like I said, I made a video on Lords already, I posted it, and then on Twitter, a lot of people really didn't like my video. They said I was shilling, that I didn't care for Lords prior to this 2.0 thing, which isn't true. I bought the game day one, I beat it within its release window. If you don't believe me, go look up my PSN. It's Shoryuken with 2 Ys, by the way. The evidence is there if you somehow don't believe that I didn't play or beat Lords of the Fallen at release. I'm not hiding anything. Regardless, I felt like these people who were attacking me over my coverage of the game, whom I will not give spotlight in this video because that's what they really want, so instead of giving any one of these people the exposure they so desperately want, I'll just consider them all one giant gluttonous monolith that I'll address instead if you guys don't mind. Which is simply, they just, like the developers who were angry at Elden Ring, just like the constant attacks that CI Games and Hexworks went under following the release of not only Lords, but especially that 2.0 update, claiming that they were bending the knee to woke grifters, when in reality, they were simply giving people who actually buy games what they wanted. That this was all a bad thing. It also reminds me of Baldur's Gate 3, which also, to a similar degree, was also met with insane levels of cope following its release, just like Elden Ring or this 2.0 Lord stuff too. When Baldur's Gate 3 released, the cope began to flow out of gaming journalist websites immediately to run damage control, not because Baldur's Gate 3 was a bad game, but actually the opposite. In fact, it was good, too good some would say, and it raised the bar way too highly, as this article from 80 Level states. Developers believe Baldur's Gate 3 shouldn't be raised standard for RPGs. This is not a new baseline for RPGs, this is an anomaly. So this all stemmed when a developer named Xavier Nelson Jr., don't harass this guy by the way, said this in a mega thread he posted about Baldur's Gate 3. He started with this. Like a lot of people, I'm deeply excited about what the lovely folks at Larian accomplished with Baldur's Gate 3, but I want to gently, preemptively push back against players taking that excitement and using it to apply criticism or a raised standard to RPGs going forward. As a TLDR, in an era of mega games, Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the largest attempted, built by a specialized group of people using mature tech specifically built to make this specific game, reinforced by invaluable mass player feedback and market validation ahead of its launch. This is not a new baseline for RPGs, this is an anomaly. Trying to do the same thing in the same way, especially without the same advantages, could kill an entire group of studios. As you would expect, this Xavier's comments on Baldur's Gate 3, yep, it caused quite a firestorm when this first happened, and people got mad, claiming that he, alongside other devs, were simply trying to assure players that they should not expect this level of quality from every studio or game. Even IGN at one point made a video about this very topic. They actually even credited me in that video's description as one of the YouTubers they referenced this info from originally, but of course I was removed because I don't fit the narrative that these people want. So the point of all of this is that we are seeing time and time again that whenever a game does well, or gives players what they actually want out of their games, the industry, instead of celebrating these games, does the opposite and just wants to bury them instead. Elden Ring is too vast, it's too good, and it's too grand. You can't possibly expect this from other developers, and if you do, you're a moron, and also we hate you. Baldur's Gate 3, that's too expansive with their choices. The characters are written like actual people. We can't do that. No, you must go enjoy Dragon Age Veilguard instead, and also stop being a bigot. And now you got Lords of the Fallen 2.0, like clockwork. Instead of celebrating that CI Games and Hexworks have done something grand and given players what they actually wanted from these sorts of experiences, how did the industry and its journalists respond? Was it with praise or giving the developers a digital pat on the back for like a job well done or whatever? Of course not. Instead, the story was rebranded as being CI Games and Hexworks are anti-woke, alt-right enablers who must be ostracized, and made an example of so no other studio steps out of line and starts, God forbid, thinking for themselves again. Like this article I referenced last video game publishers are starting to use anti-DEI as a marketing meme. Lords of the Fallen publishers play up their anti-woke bona fides. Doesn't even end there, guys. Here's another one titled, Lords of the Fallen publisher embraces fear of the AI boogeyman, says it will not include any social or political agendas in its games. CI Games apparently believes that inclusive games are at a high risk of failure. They are, by the way. Oh, and this one also titled again, Lords of the Fallen dev is wrong about politics and Elden Ring proves it. The point here is that these journalists, they don't want you to play these games. You're not allowed to be excited or emboldened or, God forbid, happy that you actually got a game that was worth your money and time anymore. Why is it that mediocre slop like Veilguard or South of Midnight gets praised and lifted up like they're the bastions of games that the media wants? And then these games, which are still inevitably celebrated, still win Game of the Year nominations and awards, but even then these journalists will still write hit pieces after hit piece against them. Then you recently had this article, again, from PC Gamer about Baldur's Gate 3 that literally just came out within a week of this video being made, and it's titled, Former BioWare producer says Baldur's Gate 3's impact on game dev will be somewhat muted thanks to industry convention, and I can't help think we've got it all backwards.
I accept don't try to
here's
manipulate
what it says
me.
instead. The producer in question here, by the way, is Mark Dara. He was a producer on pretty much every Dragon Age game and then some, and he said this via a video on his own personal YouTube channel. Baldur's Gate 3 was immensely successful, and it did change the landscape in terms of who was willing to look at an RPG. But I think its impact on the way that games are actually developed is going to be more muted than people who are outside the video game industry might be expecting. He continues, maybe the video game development industry is wrong about its assumptions about what it can get away with, but to a large degree, when they look at Baldur's Gate 3, what they see is a game that very successfully executes on what it is trying to do, but what it's trying to do isn't something that a lot of other games would be allowed to do, and he's right to a degree. BG3 had the freedom to be what it wanted to be, the same way that Elden Ring was, and to a degree what CI Games and Hexworks did with Lords of the Fallen 2.0 as well. They were finally, although after their release, but it's still trash, allowed to go back and make the game that they always wanted it to be. No more body type 1 or 2, now it's male or female, and so on with more tweaks. The point here is that if you haven't noticed, whenever there's a game that breaks the mold, it does well, or gives people what they really want.
My name is Alicia
doesn't seem to want to celebrate it ever. Instead, they just seem vengeful towards these games instead, as if they're not allowed to be success stories or get praise from either they're too good or they don't check the boxes that they wanted to, or more importantly, what I think it is,
it's
because these games became success stories without their, and I mean journalist input or say in those games being made successes in the first place. Elden Ring being great is fine, but I, as a journalist, didn't give From Software the okay to do that, so now it's a problem for everybody. Baldur's Gate 3 gives you a ton of choice and justifies its price tag, but please remember to not expect actual genuine great games for the money you spend in the future, right? What's that? Lords of the Fallen did what? It got rid of body types and genders instead? What do you mean it's something like crazy improves giving players what they want? And not drowning your experiences in modern political jargon is actually good for sales and your reputation. I'm shocked. Well, now we gotta kill it and bury it and make an example out of it too. Don't buy the game. Don't you even dare play it. Don't even look at it. I better never hear any of you ever mention the name of that game ever again when it comes to how to make games successful in this modern day.
Go ahead.
And if you ask me, this backwards way of looking at game development and seeing what clearly works is a big reason why the integrity and lifeblood of the journalism side of gaming has died so resoundingly quickly as it has. Because they never celebrate these games. At best, they'll release an article on Lords 2.0 saying, yeah, it has updates, but that's about it. They're not going to praise CI Games or Hexworks for what they did. Wow, you guys actually went back and fixed your game. That's amazing. No, instead, it's all negativity. And this stupid way of thinking needs to be rectified if the industry and the journalists especially want any hope of connecting again to the readers are supposed to be in service to in the first place. But the sad part is, maybe they don't care. They don't want to be in service to the players or the readers anymore. After all, we're all bigots, aren't we? Evil straight males for the most part who aren't aware of our supremacy over these poor writers and the people in the industry. Oh, we're all so evil. I've never in my life seen an industry so loathing of its consumer base like video games are right now for the past like 5 years at least. Maybe Hollywood probably comes the closest to this, but yeah, they've been reeling in pain ever since and they still haven't recovered. And this is why the perpetually offended are losing their minds every time something does well. Because what does well is never in service of them, the journalists, but the players instead, and doesn't push their message. But they don't want that. They're mad because it's based, and based games are winning. Oh no, I also want to bring up another game to prove a point, which is Goddess of Victory Nikki, or Nike? I think that's how you say it. Anyway, it's a mobile game from Shift Up. Yeah, the same developers as Stellar Blade. Anyway, this Nike, I'm going to call it Nike. Nike is doing absurdly well even to this day for Shift Up, which is a South Korean development studio. In Nike, you play as cute anime girls with assets, I guess we could say, and you then engage in combat. It's a free-to-play game, and to the surprise of nobody, it's doing gangbusters. As of March 2025, as seen here from PocketGamer.com, Goddess of Victory, Nikki, Nike, whatever, hits $1 billion on mobile during Romantic Valentine event. And by the way, half of this came from Japanese players alone. That's crazy. But anyway, the game originally came out on November 4th, 2022. And within its first year, Nike was able to rack up an impressive $553 million in revenue. Jesus, making the game a mobile game sensation. During its second year, the revenue dipped to around $334 million. Still a lot of money, who are kidding, but it has now ramped up again. By the way, Nikki Nike whatever made $106 million in its debut month when it first came out. That's crazy, I know. Anyway, with Nikki Nike doing gangbusters and Stellar Blade becoming a sensation, which delivered plenty of action RPG goodness and got lambasted by journalists the same way everything else I mentioned already has. This is all led to, as Forbes reports here, creator of blockbuster game Goddess of Victory, whatever it's called, joins ranks of Korea's 50 richest. Kim Hwang-tae, that's the guy here in the red jacket, has become an overnight multi-millionaire thanks to his efforts when it comes to his visual designs with his video games and how he markets them. Kim is currently worth, according to Forbes, about $725 million himself, and due to Stellar Blade being a hit, while also becoming the highest rated game by users for PS5 in 2024, by the way, on Metacritic, this all led to Shift Up's revenue spiking by over $125 million in 2024 alone. So to say that Kim Hwang-tae and Shift Up by association are doing well, yeah, that's an understatement. But what Kim did to achieve such renown was still blasted by journalists when Stellar Blade and Nikki Nike whatever dominated because they were too sexy, too prude. How many articles exist where journalists were complaining that Eve from Stellar Blade was too sexualized? Again, like Lords or BG3, the journalists didn't celebrate Shift Up's victories, instead downplaying them and trying to silence them for daring to step out of line due to what they deemed acceptable. The same happened with Black Myth Wukong. Remember the articles when IGN famously claimed that Game Science, the makers of Wukong, were actually sexist and they were actually abusing people behind the scenes? And yet, since those claims, nothing came to light, nothing was reported, and no evidence of any kind to fit IGN's narrative, which then multiple websites would reference in literally every single article about Wukong during its release talked about. Remember when Black Myth Wukong also famously got a 6 out of 10 from Screen Rant, and they claimed that the game was not diverse enough because there were no people of color in it? I'm not even kidding by that. Go look it up. Yeah, a game where you play as a magical monkey in fantasy China, fighting spiders and beetles and rats, was not diverse enough for games journalists. You gotta be kidding me. And this is what I'm saying, guys. They tried to bury Black Myth Wukong. It didn't work, obviously. The game sold over 25 million copies. My god, dude. And it became an Elden Ring level success story, and has now led to China doubling down on game development, and it will lead to, mark my words, China taking over the game industry before too long, too. Whether it's Wukong, or Baldur's Gate 3, or Elden Ring, or this Nikki Nike game, or Stellar Blade, or Lords of the Fallen, they all have something in common, don't they? All these games are problems for the games industry because they were too successful, they were too giving, and they gave you, the player, what you wanted in this desert that is Western gaming for the most part. And yet they never patted Wukong on the back for a job well done. They won't do the same with Lords of the Fallen either. Because these games, to these types, just like the Twitter folk who attacked me, who salivate for relevancy, they find all of these games problematic for all sorts of stupid reasons. You can't like them, you shouldn't play them, because if you do, you're the problem with the games industry, not us, of course. That's right, according to them, We should all just be playing DI made by Committee Gray Slop.
My
We should
name is
never enjoy
Elise.
anything unless they give us
You
the okay
too.
to do so
What
ever
seems to be
again.
the problem?
And if you ask me, that disgusts me.
All right.
It really does. The fact that these morons on Twitter too say that I don't play games.
please,
Me,
I
of
mean,
all
not
people.
bad.
I don't want to
What
toot my
a
horn too much,
fool
but I
you
literally
are.
just 100%ed the first Berserker Kazan. That's one of the
No,
most challenging
don't make-
Souls-likes
I
to ever
doubt
be
it. Not
created. I
bad.
did it in one playthrough.
Don't make-
No
I
summons,
doubt
nothing.
that.
I don't even know
No,
how
you
easy
do
the
me
easy
too
mode
much
is because I never
honor.
turned it
Good
on.
one.
I
Really,
platinumed
now talk
Elden
tough.
Ring,
I
Black Myth,
doubt it.
Wukong, Stellar Blade,
Don't
Sekiro,
make- I
all the
doubt
Dark
it.
Souls
Not
and
bad.
Demon Souls
Goodness.
games,
What can I
Bloodborne,
say?
Wolong, Fallen
Goodness.
Dynasty, hell,
What can
I
I-
even
that's
platinumed
cute.
both
I
Neo
doubt-
games
Good
and
one.
more. Yet to these people,
see.
I'm the one who isn't a gamer. Oh,
Irene
I'm the one
metric
who's in the wrong
moves
here,
with-
because I what? Want people
you're
to
looking-
have games that respect them, that give them what their money is
Much
actually
as- oh.
worth. How far
Good day.
down are these people in these ideology
On to
holes
Sven.
to be thinking like this still?
Yes.
Why is it problematic or bad to want better for players? Why
You
am I
can't
met
pass
with
them.
so
Don't
much
waste your-
blowback
Not bad.
from so-called
Bad at
people who
all.
call themselves gamers for simply wanting
My
what's
life
best
is
for them?
that
The only
Don't
answer is that
waste your
these people are
flattery on
not
me.
in this for the
Yeah,
soul of
don't
gaming
waste-
or
I
whatever.
salute
They
you.
just
Can't scare
crave
me.
control, and that's really it. They want you in the
wasted.
gutter,
Sure.
eating and
Not-
feeding
not
off of their
such
scraps and their
adventures.
doo-doo butter.
How
I'm
you
personally
can't-
not about
yeah,
that life.
not
I don't
now.
think
Such
it's wrong to
adventures.
want that you
How-
deserve in
alright.
terms of your
I get-
entertainment. If you're
If you're look-
considered to give 100% of the money for the product
Good
every
day.
time you buy something, then why is it so bad that you should not expect 100% of the quality of the product in return? Why is that problematic? The only people who think this is wrong are snake oil salesmen
How
who will
goes
call
it?
me and others
Venezian?
grifters when they champion DI nonsense. That is also just a convenient,
see.
all-blanket way to make
You're
problems
too
in the
I
industry
like
for
that a lot.
developers
What if I
by
doubt it?
gaslighting them into believing that
How
said
nice.
problems
What
exist
if
and
I
then
doubt it?
offering their
That's
services to fix
great.
the
That's-
problems
oh,
that
that- you're
wouldn't
too
have
low.
existed had
I
they
doubt
never
it.
grifted these studios to begin with.
You're
Did I just
good.
explain Sweet Baby in pretty much all of them? I sure as hell
You
did.
have
And
what
look, people can be mad about
Defeat-
Lords of the Fallen 2.0 all
Why?
they want, but Steam numbers don't lie, folks. We're seeing
That's
great
okay.
responses to the game changing its ways and the game
Take
sitting at a
care.
very positive rating. We should celebrate that, not attack it. Because Hexworks took the feedback, they fixed the bugs, and they delivered a Souls-like that slaps harder than a Mimic chest. But oh no, they say, but it's a game that doesn't cater to everyone's feelings. How dare they, the usual suspects. Those blue-check wannabes and Reddit mods with way too much time on their hands are out there crying that Lords of the Fallen 2.0 is pandering to anti-woke. Come on, man. We should be celebrating right now. Instead, I gotta fight back because people are trying to slander me instead. It's all so tiresome.
Best defense.
We should be happy about Lords of the Fallen doing what they did, but they instead take it
listening.
as offense more than anything. It's like that
Blah,
Nikki Nike
don't
game
be
I mentioned.
Where'd you
Oh,
get
it's too
that?
gratuitous.
That's
Cool story.
enough.
Guess what? It has over
Don't make
45
me- was that
million
supposed to be a
downloads and hit
co- I
$1
will-
billion
I like
in
that.
revenue, like
A
I
lot.
said already.
Europe.
That's
I'm
not
not
even a
buying
game
that
anymore,
one.
dude. That's
I
a
won't.
money
Where'd you
printing
get
empire.
that?
And why?
That's-
Because
that's-
Shift Up
don't
knows
make
their
that
audience.
simple. I
They're not
won't
trying
fight
to
you.
appeal to the everyone must feel
You-
included
I
crowd.
like
They're
that.
making a
Don't-
game
was
for
that supposed
people
to be
who
a
like hot
compliment?
anime girls. And Fast
And if you
Combat and a
must
story
have
about
heavy armor,
humanity fighting like alien robots is
Both feel-
unapologetic, but hey, it works. But oh no, here comes the fun
Bye.
police. Nikki Nike is too sexy. It's degrading. Why are the characters so curvy? Bro, it's a gotcha game. If you're looking for deep social commentary, just go read a sociology textbook. The haters are just mad. Because all of these games just don't bend the knee to their whining. Shift Up's like, you don't like it, cool, we over here cashing our checks. And the best part, the same people crying about Nikki Nike are the ones clutching their pearls over Lords of the Fallen, and yeah, you guessed it too, Stellar Blade. They just keep putting their arms up in the air whenever something they disagree with does well, yet they never lift a finger to support the things
The
that
best
champion
defense.
their nonsense either. Have you all noticed that? Look, the point of all of this is that while
Look
I would
around.
like to not
You won't
necessarily
find better
fight these
prices
sorts
in
of people all of the time, as I find it personally very mentally draining more so because I have to deal with their stupidity, the reality is that these people genuinely do think they're in the right. They think they're morally superior because they have a gender study degree while wearing a shirt with the communist symbol on it. Look, you can't appease morons when it comes to anything. You can't cater to everyone on the planet, and it's impossible to make most of these guys happy when you do anything, because they'll always just go and send a tweet saying how you're wrong without any proof, just the thoughts in their brain swirling around like a toilet bowl. At the end of the day, I just want video games to respect the players again. I want games to be worth the money that you spend on them, and I
Thank
want
you.
games to stop
Come on.
talking down to you. That's literally
Farewell.
it. I'm not in this for the money. If I was, I would be on Twitch right now, spreading my butthole wider than the Grand Canyon while writing people's names on my chest with a Sharpie. Instead, I'm here doing this. My YouTube channel began because these types couldn't leave video games alone. Their own hubris led to this, if you ask me, but ultimately, just keep supporting games made by people who don't hate you. Not only will your wallet thank you, but your soul will too. Stop feeding these freaks and just let them die in obscurity. We should look at these Reddit-minded woke communists like the parasites that they are and shine a light on them and then roundhouse kick them a few times in the head and then maybe go enjoy some video games once it's all said and done. And by roundhouse, I mean ideologically, don't assault anybody. Someone will take that out of context because the internet is so dumb. But thank you for watching. Please enjoy some games today. Go play something you love. And remember that morally, these types are not beneath your boot. They are in the sewers just sloshing in their own filth. You don't have to pretend to want these people around us anymore when it comes to video games. Just let their ideas, like their relevancy, die a slow death of their own making.
You want light armor?
I'm done talking. Thank you, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. PlayStation just yeeted Sweet Baby Inc. into orbit, and fellas, it's time to dance on the ashes. Sony's axed a pile of projects tied to these narrative hacks. After years of Sweet Baby turning AAA games into preachy PowerPoint slides, it seems like the big dogs have finally grown a spine, it seems. Are we done with heroes in video games whining about their feelings and acting like they were forced to attend unconscious bias training? Well, let's see if there's any truth to what's going on here. To put it simple, PlayStation's cleaning house. From that Park Place, Sweet Baby Inc. reportedly dropped by Sony as gaming giants cancel several projects with Sweet Baby Inc. involvement. This massive bombshell comes from friends of the channel Gothic Therapy. This husband and wife duo are like the eyes that Sweet Baby Inc. just can't seem to pluck no matter how hard they try. They've been exposing and getting scoops on everything Stinky Baby related for a while now. Pretty much, Sony's cut Sweet Baby Inc. loose, scrapping multiple titles in the pipeline. Hopefully this means that the next God of War won't have any rainbow axes or Kratos going to a therapy session to talk about his toxic masculinity.
What a great story.
This news isn't surprising to someone like me. After all, Pump towards $400 million belly flop was the thing of legends. Sony lost a lot of money and credibility when they released that stinker of a game. Especially when you consider that Concord costed Sony more to make than something like either Last of Us games or even God of War 2018 and Ragnarok. Yet all the games I just said have sold somewhere in the 10 million plus range, which even for Sony, that's not enough it seems these days. After all, when you compare the pre-Sweet Baby Inc. version of God of War, which sold somewhere close to 20 million, to Ragnarok, which actually sold less than that, it's not really surprising because people don't want this blasphemy in their video games. And of course then you have Spider-Man 2, which was also Sweet Baby aligned and barely scraped half its 2018 game sales in comparison. Sony's wallets are crying, and Sweet Baby's the fall guy. But it shouldn't be that surprising considering where Sweet Baby's mission started, which is Quebec, Canada, by the way. Which makes me sad every time I remember that I'm Canadian, and that means this plague originated near me too, and it has. And yes, I apologize on behalf of Canadians, dear viewers. We're not all morons who think all your games should suck donkey balls, I assure you. However, that Park Place does bring up a story I didn't know about when it came to Kim Belair. That's the co-founder of Sweet Big Bomb Baby. So she was interviewed at some point in 2019 and brought up Mass Effect 2 of all games. And according to Park Place, Kim Belair was upset that players were able to change their Commander Shepard into whatever they wanted when they played that game. As in, you know, your skin color, being male or female, the whole shebang. So her Commander Shepard, which she made, is a black female character, obviously, and when she first meets Jacob Taylor in Mass Effect 2, who's a black guy, in case you've never played the game, but Kim Belair then had this eureka moment of representation, according to her. Here's what she said during that speech in 2019.
Greetings to
the general idea was
They
holy
say that the
moly,
priests and
representation
priestesses
is cool.
of the Chapel of
But in my
Debella
Mass
welcome
Effect
to the mystic.
experience, this is almost an accidental
see.
form of representation because it's something
You've
that's
got
a
such
possibility.
adventure.
It's not
What?
guaranteed
That's
for any
just
player depending
not-
on the kind
that's
of character
Mike,
and the
I can't
commander
argue
shepherd
with
you
that.
make.
That's-
So I
you've
thought,
got- don't-
wouldn't it be
that's
amazing
just
if
not
this
fun.
wasn't
You
an
don't-
accident,
sorry,
but it was
that's
actually the
amazing.
intention of
That's
the game
just
designers?
not great.
You
Ah,
win
so
this
she had
one.
an accidental
I
moment of
salute-
two
you
black
win,
characters
don't-
meeting
that's
in the game
just
and then thought that
stupid.
every
Sorry.
single player
Great.
out there,
Don't waste your
regardless of
flattery
their
on me.
skin
All
color,
right.
gender, and anything else, would love
Anyone.
to have the same sort
No.
of experience that she had. So this kind of explains South of Midnight, which came
I
out
offer the
recently,
finest
by the way.
goods and
It's made
lowest
by
prices in
Compulsion
all
Games.
Cyrodiil.
The actual Steam numbers for Midnight are, well, take a look for yourselves. Yeah, they're
Have a
not
look at
great,
my
as you can
wares.
see.
I'm sure
Not
there's
many
something
people
to suit
actually
you.
bought this game, which retails for $50 Canadian at release, although it is available on Game Pass. So I would wager the majority of people who I guess did end up playing this game probably just did there instead of buying it outright. And that game, as I reported way back, was originally meant to star a white, fair-skinned young woman. And the game was never meant to be in the Bayou Swamps or anything like that. Grum spoke to devs at Compulsion, this was almost a year ago, about this game. And he even got an actual character model comparison from devs there, as you can see here, where the original main character was very
Bye.
clearly a white woman with European
Greetings.
features. And then
Go
on
ahead,
the right,
please.
that's the character that ended up being the final product, and as you can see with your very own
So?
eyes, they're completely different. But it's
Wish-
no
don't.
surprise once
That's
Kim
great.
Belair
How-
joined
oh,
Compulsion Games to
please.
help with the narrative design of the
Don't
game.
try
She
to
pushed to
wish-
completely
oh,
change
that's
the
great.
game
How's
to
it
fit
go
her
again?
own agendas
I
and
like
ideals.
don't
Because the
remo-
game
let's
was
just
never meant
talk.
to be what it ended
That's-
up becoming, but
what?
she
Let's
just
just
forced
talk.
it because she wanted everyone
Wish-
to have that
let's
same
just-
experience
I like-
that she
don't
had
waste your
when her
flattery.
black
Rick,
female
don't.
commander
Really?
Shepard met
You can't
Jacob in
scare
Mass
me.
Effect 2 because representation.
Don't waste
It's always
room.
funny
Is that
how
so?
people have an experience and then imagine that everyone wants exactly what they want, except
Not
that it's
what?
never
You're
really
wasting
the
your
case.
breath.
And it ain't even rumors
You're
at this
waste-
point,
oh,
because Sony's
don't.
pattern is clear.
Remarkable.
Even Square Enix, for
All
example,
right,
they
I-
bailed on Sweet Baby Inc. last year
Let's
after
do business.
Forspoken died. Sure, Forspoken was consulted by Black Girl Gamers, which is also a real consulting firm, but Black Girl Gamers, Sweet Baby Inc., all of it is sort of the same kind of beast. And if you know the story surrounding Forspoken, Luminous Productions,
fine
which made that
transaction.
game, went from creating one of the highest selling Final Fantasies of all time with 15, and then released
You got a
Forspoken
great deal
that
there.
literally nobody bought and critics hated.
You've
It
made
was
a
a
good bit of
certified
gold. I
modern flop
appreciate
of epic proportions, and then Luminous ended up closing shop, but since
Have a
it's
look
Japan,
around.
the devs didn't
You
really
won't
lose
find
their jobs
better
at least.
prices
They
in
just
all-
kind
What
of
can I
got
interest
folded
you in?
back into Square Enix to join their various other teams at the company. And Forspoken, like South of Midnight, was based on a demo by Luminous called Agony's Philosophy, which you're seeing
Be
on
seeing
screen
you.
right now. And it, just like Midnight, starred a character that was very obviously, as your eyes can see, not a black woman at all. And look, I'm not saying that games can't have black female leads or anything like that, but the point stands that both of these games were made from concepts that were clearly one thing, and once these consultation groups got involved with the project, they
Good day.
became something else entirely. So it's no wonder to
Be
me
seen.
anyways that now PlayStation's joining the club of kicking these consulted firms to the curb. Because Sweet Baby's flops are legendary. Suicide Squad bled $200 million. Spider-Man 2 launched with more agenda than a summer camp. And while Sweet Baby Inc. didn't work on it, Concord channeled that same sort
You've
of
cut-
activism energy. And then it got
Go
shut
ahead.
down faster than a PSN outage. You ask
I
me,
said
hiring
don't-
Sweet Baby Inc.
that's
to
just-
work on your
I
game
won't fight
now
you.
is just like inviting in the Grim Reaper
You've
to
got a
take you
point.
away at
Don't.
this point.
That's
Even
amazing.
Insomniac, which
Don't.
did
Sorry.
Spider-Man 2, which
You've got a
underperformed,
point.
is also
What?
doing
Sorry.
the Wolverine
I-
game. And I think
such
this
a-
change has been a
You
long
win
time
this one.
coming since back in October 2024.
That
also
works
from
for me.
Place, Marvel's Wolverine's
Tell me
creative
more.
director no longer on project due to creative
Need new
decisions
clothing?
around the
I have
game.
a fantastic
So Brian Horton,
selection.
who was the original director of this Wolverine game, he'd been working on it since 2021, and then as we now know, leaves 3 years later, and then just ended up leaving Insomniac entirely. So now there's a new creative and game director, which are people who have worked on Insomniac's other hits like Ratchet and Clank and more. So this just tells me that this change in direction and citing the creative differences behind the scenes are being changed
Tell your
are
friends
lining up rather perfectly with Sony.
Anyone.
Again, according to Gothic Therapy, completely removing Sweet Baby
Bye.
Inc. from their company like they were leeches that got way too comfortable. Because look, whether that South of Midnight game is good or not, I'm not playing it. Don't ask me to do that, alright? I already suffered through Ass Creed Shadows for the channel. That game is being clearly not supported by actual buyers of the game to a degree that would actually justify its years of development. And it's simple, guys. People don't want to support things that the Stinky Baby was a part of. And I mean, Spider-Man 2 even was allegedly supposed to have DLCs and story expansions. Only none of that happened because, like I said, the game ended up selling 50% worse than the previous one. You know it's bad because the guy who voices Peter Parker in those Insomniac games,
Not
his
funny.
name is Yuri Lowenthal,
Not even a little.
had to tell the internet that Peter will be sidelined in the eventual third game, despite the second game ending as if Peter was handing the mantle to Miles. Which fans, like your boy here, absolutely hated and was a big reason why Spider-Man 2 was so loathed by actual Spider-Man fans. Here's what Yuri said. He will be part of the next game, and he won't be relegated to the couch, I promise.
Thank you.
While I think that Peter would love to believe that he can just turn it off and not be Spider-Man anymore and live a completely normal life, I don't think that's what's going to happen now.
Sorry.
Okay, going to happen now. Oh, so it was in the cards before then. Well, I hope not. Because I don't know about you, but I want to play Spider-Man in my Spider-Man games. And Miles, at least if you ask me, is not Spider-Man, and I don't care how much people try to push him that he is.
Really now?
Because if he was Spider-Man, then his own spin-off game wouldn't have had his full legal name displayed on the cover, so fans knew who the game actually stars. But let's keep cackling at this train wreck. Sweet Baby Inc. thought they could walk into these studios with the exaggerated swagger of a black teen and just start reinventing how gaming has been done for years. We've got the vision, they thought, and ended up just leaving a trail of smoldering wrecks instead.
That's really
The fact that Spider-Man 2 sidelined Peter Parker for Miles was clearly a Sweet Baby Inc. decision. Think about it. You got a white hero and a black hero. Who do you think Sweet Baby wants to lead the series? It also makes no sense narratively either. Because Miles has no villains of his own now in that franchise going forward. Mr. Negative's beef with him is done. The Prowler is retired. The villains are clearly going to be the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus going forward, which are obviously two villains that are tied directly to Peter and not Miles. So what's Miles' angle here? What's his new main villain? I don't know, maybe he can fight a white guy who's like a landlord that's making people pay more for rent or something, or he can chase more robot dogs that are designed to kill people and then give them as pets to old women that will definitely not result in that robot dog eating that poor old woman defenseless one day. That's a real mission, by the way, in Spider-Man 2, I'm not lying. You legit give a robot dog to an old lady. They just have no angle here where Peter isn't the main character, and if it was up to Sweet Baby, Miles would just become Marvel Jesus, and Peter would be sucking his toes like he's gone. So it's no wonder that Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't care how these games perform or how they're received. They just pocketed the cash from these studios and then moonwalk themselves out of there. Maybe Sony's finally realizing that gamers don't want gender studies homework with their web slinging. They want chaos. They want stakes and great characters, not Spider-Man crying over his white male guilt. I could just imagine Sweet Baby Inc.'s pitch to Sony for the next God of War game. Kratos needs a feelings journal. Maybe he needs a vegan phase. You know, to show people that he's changed, that he's turned a leaf. And I'm sure Sony America, which is situated in California, would hear that and start clapping like seals, thinking, oh, it's so progressive. Look, Sweet Baby Inc.'s so detached, they would turn the Horizon series, if they could, into a co-op knitting simulator. They would instead have you crafting scarves instead of arrows. You ask me, Sweet Baby Inc.'s the DLC that nobody is asking for, and Sony's clearly not laughing. They're just done with this circus. And the cherry on top of all of this is that Sweet Baby Inc.'s Kim Belair once bragged about terrifying PR teams into deals with them.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
Well, Kim, you scared Sony, all right? Straight into firing you all from working there again, so good job on that one. And PlayStation's not here for your fanfic rewrite. Kratos doesn't need a hug. He needs skulls to crack and spines to twist. And look, even if these projects that Sweet Baby Inc. was allegedly a part of, and Sony cost them some millions to turn around, the point is that the alternative would have been hundreds of millions of dollars in losses and damages to their brands instead. So it's worth this change to happen if it means that we can get back on track and back into business. So why is this a game changer? Sony's not just dodging a bullet, fellas, here. They're dodging a literal nuke. Because Sweet Baby's a vampire. They're just draining games with their representation fetish. Every game that they've touched has been objectively worse because of their involvement. And fellas, it brings me so much joy to hear that Sony, of all places, could be sending the stinky baby in a rocket towards the sun to atomize it into nothing. It really does.
Waste your
Can
flattery.
you blame Sony when your flagship titles aren't making nearly the same amount of money as they used to? Then you look over and you see stuff like Black Myth Wukong.
What is
just
it,
saying,
citizen?
you know what? Screw your consultants. And then, they just end up selling 20 million plus copies. That's Elden Ring level, by the way. And then Black Myth Wukong becomes an overnight legend and that unifies and pushes China's whole game industry to overdrive. And Sony's looking at those sorts of massive success stories that rejected consultants and realizing that gamers want escapism, not lectures on privilege. Because let's be real, you could only have so many Concord-level plots before you end up becoming the next Ubisoft, pretty much. And here's the swift kicker to the side of the head. Sweet Baby's still whining like they're the good guys. Kim Belair's probably still trying to spin a sob story to some studio, like Sony stabbed us in the back. Not Kim, you stabbed gaming with your sanctimonious nonsense. Look, studios are going broke. Fans are bored of this, and Sony's done playing martyr. I truly hope this means that PlayStation is now back in the fight. And it isn't just a gesture, but it's instead a middle finger to every suit who forgot that games are for players and not their egos. Sony's betting on delivering the goods again, hopefully, and maybe Kratos might actually kill something next time without crying about it. So what's Sony got up its sleeve now? According to the internet, they're pivoting hard. Single-player bangers, no more live service flops. God of War without the touchy-feely crap? Yeah, give me more of that, please. And it's no surprise this stuff is happening, as this happened just a bit back. This is from Eurogamer. Sony cancels 2 more live service games, including one based on God of War. A God of War live service game. What were they cooking over there, I wonder? I can already see the reveal trailer. It's a group of randomly very diverse and ugly people with a black lesbian leading the others into battle to fight Greek and Norse monsters. And then out of nowhere, an Asian woman with a unibrow and a septum piercing swings in from the left with her own blades of chaos on her. Then the camera pans up and we see the villain. It's a white guy, of course, and then a shot of the vendors of the game show. And all the vendors are incredibly diverse, and then it shows Kratos for like 5 seconds to remind you this is somehow God of War related. And then the subtitle of the game probably gets said by Kratos like God of War Bloodbath or something like that. Yeah, no thanks, I'm good. I'm glad it's canceled. There's not enough players, if you ask me, to keep all of these live service offerings going. And I'd rather Sony just focus on delivering quality, agenda-free single-player offerings than tying one of their talented studios to the live service slop cycle of development that is plaguing modern games. Just give us blood in action, Sony, not bonding and white guild seminars in our games, for God's sakes. Just chasing these woke trends is a loser's game. Sweet Baby's exit from Sony hopefully means that Kratos is going to be smashing gods again. And I mean that, both in terms of fights and many games too, if you know what I mean. And I look at upcoming remasters like Days Gone as a good example of where Sony might be heading. They know that Days Gone sold absurdly well for how much it cost them, but these remasters only exist for really 2 reasons. One is that remasters are used to generate revenue to then use that revenue to make the sequel game. The other big reason for a remaster is also simple. It's to gauge whether there's interest in more content being made in that franchise in the future as well. So this is why I tell people, if you want a Days Gone 2 and you want to return to that base gaming era that Sony used to be in, you should probably support Days Gone remaster.
You're wasting your breath.
You gotta vote with your wallet for the things you want to keep seeing and keep it close for things you want to see less of.
What can I say?
Remember that Sweet Baby's still working, because Master of the TDS, who's
I cringe whenever that name is mentioned.
Revealed in his
At this rate, I don't know if I can keep my doors open. If you want to help out some poor merchants, head on over to Gen
we can all probably guess that whatever these 30
Gen Scene is running the
more than half of them are going to
Irene
be
Metric
absolute
moves
flops
with
in
such.
release too, because why would you want to
If I don't have what you need, try Claudette
this to
Perry.
fester, literally every game on the Western
I have
front at the very
potions and
least
everything you need to make your own.
by things
What
like
will it be?
this. Because if a Days Gone sequel happened with Sweet Baby Inc. attached somehow, Deacon St. John would get killed in the opening by a Chinese lady with a massive vibrator. And then some random Indian woman named Michael would become the main character all of a sudden. And if Sweet Baby was still a part of, like, Insomniac, Spider-Man 3 would unironically somehow have a playable ghost spider. That's the spider them who webs their wheelchair to their back when they swing around fighting crime. And that's real, by the way. That's an actual character that exists, but we'll know if we're on the right track if Sony drops a trailer with zero preaching for their core franchises. If whenever the next God of War gets revealed and it just shows Kratos tearing through dudes like he's at a Black Friday sale, maybe we're back in business. And if you ask me, SBI has had the reverse Midas touch. Instead of turning everything to gold, they just turn everything into poopy gray slop whenever they're involved. Sony's got to nail this going forward. Put fun first and throw away the preaching altogether. But if you ask me, this sounds like it could be a turning point. This isn't just Sony's win, it's a win for gamers. They can't reasonably afford these $100 million slop simulators anymore because they're a company that needs to make money. And it's no wonder why the majority of their ports to PC recently aren't doing well, because people don't want to support stuff that the baby is attached to. And if you ask me, the turning point for all of this, besides Gamergate, was Black Myth Wukong, because they proved it. 20 million plus sales, dude. Zero preaching. Sony's move might force a reckoning. Make games, not manifestos going forward. Because players are done with the guilt trips, and these companies just can't keep supporting this. And the ripple effect from this move could be absolutely crazy, because publishers industry-wide might panic, and they will say no more consultants, like they're the Scarlet Witch or something. And if Sony's showing spine with moves like this, maybe others might grow one too. So those 30 or so projects as Sweet Baby is a part of story. My opinion is, if you're working on one of those games and you're watching this, probably a good idea to gut whatever slot they put in your games.
Pleasure to see you.
Because even if you remove Sweet Baby from your credits or try your best to hide that you worked with them, the proof is going to be in your story, your characters, the gameplay, all of it. Because players can tell when they're being talked down to, and no amount of makeup is going to convince people that a pig is not a pig, if you ask me. And then if players find out that you lied to them about concealing that the baby worked on your game, oh boy, you're cooked. And whatever backlash you were going to face is going to be amplified by 1,000 in response. Because the last thing that customers enjoy is being lied to. But when it comes to Sweet Baby Inc., I just don't think supporting anything they make is a morally good idea. And if these rumors are to be believed, it's in Sony's and the wider industry's best interest to completely gut this nonsense going forward. Make your games fun, make them work at release so they don't crash all the time, make your stories interesting, and stop pandering and adding stuff.
You won't find better prices in all Tamriel.
The wool is off everyone's eyes now. You can't hide this stuff anymore, and if any game company or studio is trying to ruin some franchise with political nonsense in the future, you can bet that I will be there to call it out, because no matter how much flack or negative comments I get from places telling me to end myself for standing up for gamers, which is daily at this point, I still won't stop. I care too much about video games. This medium deserves all the respect that it deserves. So always ask questions and listen to that pattern recognition in your brain. If you notice something, look into it, call it out, and go deep. The world will be a better place as long as evil is uprooted in any chance that we can get. But what do you think about all of this? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe. Thank you for watching. And here's hoping that PlayStation finally has truly severed ties with the stinky, future, god-awful baby once and for all.
I doubt. Don't waste your flat.
Grand Theft Auto 6 and the Nintendo Switch 2
I doubt.
are
No,
hot
no,
topic
you got a
issues
point.
right now.
Where'd you-
The prices
I doubt.
and
What?
more,
No,
I gotta
you win
ask
this
the
one.
question. Are
All
we
right.
heading towards a complete tanking of the industry in the long run due to these two juggernauts? The gaming industry is holding its breath for GTA 6 like it's the second
Have a look at my
of Christ
wares.
himself.
I'm sure
and
there's
Nintendo
something to
Switch
suit
2
you.
is so hyped by Nintendo
Good day.
fans, you would think that the console could cure cancer due to how much the Nintendo faithful are already defending this thing, and it's not even out. And while both the Switch 2 and GTA 6 will, of course, break all the records, I mean, why deny it? We all know that it's true. It won't happen. There always comes a caveat with these sorts of mammoth-level events. We've all heard the rumors that GTA 6 could very well cost upwards of $100 American, which would clock in well over $130 Canadian for a single game alone. And Switch 2 games are already confirmed to be $80 digitally and $90 physically depending on the games. That's right, fellas.
I doubt it.
Your wallet's about to get curb stomped harder than a pedestrian in Vice
What a
City.
fool
So,
you
is
are.
this the
I
end
doubt
of
that's
gaming as we know it?
That's
Let's
cute.
break it down.
I
First
doubt.
up, Grand Theft Auto
Really?
6.
That's cute.
Rockstar's been
You
teasing
think I'm afraid of you.
So long, I'm pretty sure my
Cavendale
unborn
runs a
kids
night
are already pre-ordered.
crime in the city?
It's set in a fictional
Oh.
Florida called Leonida with
Farewell.
a Bonnie and Clyde duo named Lucia and I think Jason, I think that's his name. Anyway, it's poised to be the biggest game ever. Like, make Avengers Endgame look like a community theater production level big. But here's the kicker. Industry insiders are whispering that Rockstar might slap a $100 price tag on the standard edition. $100. For context, that's 2 indie games, a month of Game Pass, and a large pepperoni pizza just for GTA 6 alone. That's crazy, dude. Now, Rockstar's parent company, Take-Two, isn't new to pushing these sorts of things. After all, they were the ones who jacked up NBA 2K21's price to $70 back in 2020.
You should be.
Gamers,
You're wasting your
unfortunately,
breath.
ate it
You
up like
can't
it was a
skip
free
what?
buffet.
Really?
So,
Get
why
away from me.
$100? Well, they're banking on GTA 6 being a cultural juggernaut. And
You
let's
should
be
be
real, it
ashamed.
probably will
All
be.
right.
Because, come on, guys,
It
you
would
know
be
you're probably going to buy it.
I
I'm going to
understand.
have to buy it for the channel, and my
Jason.
dog's probably going to buy it with my credit card while I'm
You
asleep.
too.
But here's where it gets sort of dicey.
Tertullians?
If GTA 6 normalizes
We'll see.
$100 games, every publisher
really?
from EA
Not
to
now.
Ubisoft,
Not-
they're all
That's
going to follow
great.
suit faster
How's
than
it go
you can say
again?
microtransaction
You can't-
hellscape, unfortunately.
Don't really?
Because imagine a
You're
world where
wet.
every
Don't.
AAA game
I wish
now
I
costs
could say
somewhere
that.
in the
Don't
$90
really.
to
You
even
can't.
$100
That's great.
American
Don't.
range.
Really. That's just talk.
Realistically,
Where'd
this
you
is
get
just
that?
not
That's
feasible
that
for
works
most
for me.
players because not
Anyone
everyone
would-
has the expendable
The Black
income
Horse.
to drop that much
May I
on a
interest you
single
in some of
video
my
game,
fine
no matter how
wares?
much they want it. The defense of more expensive games is
Take
already
care.
happening. Look at Nintendo Switch 2
Tertullian.
right now. That whole reveal is a war
seeing
zone of epic proportions. Everybody is just fighting with each other, claiming that there's no way that Nintendo can get away with what they're doing, but the sad fact is that if there's any fan base in gaming that is loyal, it's Nintendo fans, for better and definitely for worse too. Because we always talk about it in this space, how players
Hello
are
there.
enabling
What's
these
going
companies
on?
to
Hello
get
there.
away
I
with
saw a
literal
mud crab
murder,
a couple
and
of
with
days
Nintendo
ago. All right,
fans, it's
ugly little
always
animal.
just
Please,
fortunate.
yo, that's
You got
just
comments
talk.
like this one where a guy
I-
says that
not
Mario
funny.
Kart
No,
World will be
really
worth the
now.
$80 that you spend on
Really?
it, or $90,
Not
I guess,
funny.
physically.
You're
And
really
listen, I have
now.
no doubt that the
Good
latest
little.
Mario Kart
Is
will
that
be a
so?
feature-complete game that will
Little.
run
Is
well,
that
and
so?
all of that
Please,
is not really
little.
the
You
issue
can't
for
scare
it.
me.
The problem
that
is
so?
that while yes, good games or
No,
great
that's
ones
great.
can
You should be
probably
ashamed.
maybe justify these larger price points, it's
You're
the fact
wasting
that
your breath.
everything else that
No,
isn't
you
of the
are
same
not
quality
funny.
is going
Not
to follow
even a
suit
little
now
bit.
that Nintendo has
Please,
blown the horn
go
to
on.
advance the prices. And I'm telling you
No,
that once
you
GTA
do me
6
too much
finally
honor.
has a concrete release date, that's when we'll know if this industry
Remarkable.
is heading towards an
You're
inevitable
wasting
crash
your
or not.
breath.
'Cause
I
GTA
don't
6,
know.
like Switch
No,
2, are
you
going
do me
to
too much
massively
honor. You can't
overperform,
skip.
no matter what.
Well, not
But
funny.
the fact of the
Not
matter
even
is that
I
the
see.
games industry, like any other,
Black Horse
enjoys following whatever trends
be
will make
seeing
them
you.
the most money. This is why we all went
Nasty.
through
The
years
Black
of
Horse
every
here.
company under the sun releasing their
Tell me
very own
more.
battle royales when they were popular, and most of them, they don't even exist anymore. And some trends are far harder to
Don't
follow
twist
through
your
with than
flattery.
others.
Where'd
Like,
you get
for
that?
example,
That's just
releasing
talk.
feature-complete
Really?
games that don't immediately
Interesting.
implode the
Don't
moment
twist
you
your
try to play
flattery
it.
on that.
But if there's one very easy
remarkable.
trend, it's just simply hitting delete on
Don't-
your
that's
keyboard
great.
and putting
Is
that
that
dollar symbol from a
remarkable?
7 to an 8 or a 9 instead. And let's
What
be real,
nonsense.
I fully expect
What a
every
great
single
story.
publisher, company,
You can't-
and everyone
where'd you
else
get
to
that?
follow suit
That's-
once the
that's
Switch
just
2
talk.
releases this June
That's
with their
don't twist.
obviously
Really?
inflated price points.
Interest. You're
And
good.
once GTA 6 drops, it will be the
Good
massive
day.
final nail that will inevitably move the industry
Evening.
towards complete delusion
Rajira.
with their pricings. Nintendo
I'm
is
listening.
defending their choices, however. This
Don't-
comes from one
sorry,
website.
don't.
Nintendo
I wish I
justifies
could say
$80
that.
price tags for
That's
Switch
just
2,
really.
citing
I
development
don't
and
try to
replayability
manipulate.
as key
No more.
factors.
Don't you think
So
that's
Doug
funny?
Bowser, no, not that Bowser.
Don't
was
you think
interviewed by
that's
the Washington
no more?
Post, which
You're
gives
afraid.
reference
Don't.
in this
That's
article.
just not
Basically,
funny.
he says that Nintendo will
Whatever
review
you
every
want.
game they
Really?
make
What
and then
not?
decide
What a
whether
dumb
the game
joke.
being made is
What?
justified
What?
at being $80
I wish I
or
could
even
say that.
$90.
I see.
And I'm going to stop you right there, Bowser.
You see,
we
guys-
all know you guys will just price everything
Goodbye.
at insane prices because you can. There's no way they're going to make it lower. They're not going to drop their Switch games to say $50 or maybe even $60. It just isn't going to happen. Nintendo, like Rockstar, knows
One
their
day
fans
to you,
will pay
friend.
insane prices for literally anything that they make. I mean, come on,
Greetings
that
to you.
demo that they have for the Nintendo Switch is going to be $10
How are you?
American for a demo.
Hey.
And then when you come to GTA 6, that's going to be the biggest cash cow on the planet when it releases as well. So let's just say that the game is
What is it,
$100
citizen?
retail. You
State your
already know that it will launch with GTA Online
Farewell,
Day
citizen.
1 because that's Rockstar's other mega cash cow within the already expensive experience that you just paid for.
Hello.
People complain all the time that fully priced video games shouldn't have microtransactions. Yet we see it all
Well
the time
met.
anyways. Besides GTA 6, even
Farewell.
Assassin's Creed Shadows launched
Is looking for someone to chase the bandits.
I'm here to relieve
the
you.
price of
It's
admission
about
is going
time.
up these days.
State your
It
business.
seems to me, anyways, that Nintendo,
Long live
Rockstar,
the
Ubisoft,
Empire.
and more are
Trouble?
looking at their games as events, more
Yes.
so than as a single game product.
You're a
They want
what?
you to think
Oh,
of it
you
more
think
like you're
that's-
going to a
that's
hockey
enough.
or a baseball game. You pay to get in,
You-
but then
you
you gotta
think-
pay
please,
extra
you're
to
a
actually
big,
enjoy
fat
yourself
liar.
even more. Maybe you want
That's
a
enough.
hot dog,
You've
a beer,
goodness,
or a
you're a
t-shirt with
big,
your favorite
fat
player's
don't.
name on it.
You've got a-
All of
that's
this is extra
what
on
a
top of what you
wonderful
just paid
compliment.
to physically enter the establishment.
you-
That's how
please,
video
you're
games
a-
are going to
that's
become
not
pretty
bad.
much. You bought GTA 6.
Certainly.
Good for you. Now give us more money if you want
The
to
Emperor-
look cooler or do more in our game
Carry
that
on.
you already paid through the nose with. And there's no way that Nintendo won't bring more to their games either. I mean, Mario Kart gets updates too after all, and they aren't cheap. But here's the
What
thing,
is it?
once the party is over, the lights turn off, and Nintendo makes their money and walks away, and Rockstar becomes
Yes?
more richer than Tony Stark himself, the rest of the industry is going to see that
Greetings,
massive
Breton.
success and go, damn,
It's my-
we want some of that too. And this is where it
Certainly.
gets worse, because now everything will jack up the
Bye.
price. The quality of the goods won't. What are you, crazy? You want better products for paying more? Stop taking the title, just open your wallet already. And then people's Steam libraries are going to start looking like a ghost town as more and more games
Hail, good
realize
citizen.
thinking they
How
too
can
can
I be of
justify
service?
the price hike
Trouble?
until they find out that nobody
Carry
is
on.
buying their games because
You-
now they're
Hello,
also
citizen.
too damn expensive.
Move
And
along.
don't get me started on the special editions, GTA 6 Ultimate Crime Lord Edition, or whatever they want to call it. Will probably be $200 if not more American, and it'll come with a digital shark card and a real-life parking ticket too. Hard pass, no thanks. Meanwhile, Nintendo's out here playing 4D chess with our wallets. The Switch 2 dropped its big reveal, and it's a beast. It's got a bigger screen, beefier hardware, and backwards compatibility so you can keep playing Breath of the Wild until you're 80 years old. Oh yeah, also, did you know there's a Nintendo Switch 2 version of both Zelda games that released on the Switch already? The upgrade from Switch to Switch 2 will be a $10 payment, but if you don't own either games when you buy your Switch 2, both of those games will set you back each $80 to $90 too. This is crazy, dude. Here's a
Yes?
comparison video that Gamers Pray
If you
did
run into
between
trouble.
Breath of the Wild on the Switch versus the Switch 2. If you ask me, the Switch 2 looks barely better. We're talking, what, maybe 10%, if that? And the only actual change that I can see is that Wilds loads about 3 seconds faster on Switch 2. And if you ask me, for a whole
Hail,
new
good
console that is
citizen.
8
9 of the
years
evening-
removed from the previous hardware,
Long live the
3
Empire.
seconds of load time is not that much of a bump in loading quality if you ask me. But Nintendo fans will still slurp this up, as will
Good to
GTA
see
6
ya.
fans when the
Have
new
you seen
bundle
all
drops
three?
in GTA
What do you
Online
want?
2. Here's the brand new Honda
Yes?
Civic in GTA 6. You can
Don't-
play with this
that's
digital
re- is
car for the
that's-
low
well
price of
done.
probably like $30
Is
American.
that-
And it sounds like
what
I'm
a
kidding, but we
great
know it to be
story.
true,
Is
unfortunately,
that-
because
that's really
MoneyControl.com
funny.
also
What
just released an
don't
article
re-
titled
that's just talk.
GTA 6
Don't
price
remi-
release
that's-
ahead of
that's
official
great.
launch, likely to
Oh,
cost a lot
don't
more than
really.
GTA
You
5.
can't
According
scare
to
me.
them,
That's-
the Swiss
oh,
retailer
don't- what a
online briefly
great-
featured
I
GTA
see.
6 on their storefront. and
The
price
Imperial
was
Watch-
about $112
Take care.
American for a single copy of Grand Theft Auto 6 and release. I just want to see how much that would be in Canadian for. Okay, so $112 American, that comes to $158.87 Canadian. Oh my god, dude. That's before tax, by the way. Where I live, it's 5%, so we're easily in the $160 range for a single copy of GTA 6. And go ahead, try to justify that price for a single game that, by the way, doesn't have any DLC attached yet, or deluxe shenanigans or anything else. You can't. That's crazy, dude. The only game that is worth $160 is Cory in the House for Nintendo DS. Everything else isn't, and you can't really change my mind. And I knew this would happen, because look at this. GTA 6 may cost $100 as Trump-era tariffs spark global pricing speculation among fans. Oh great, now they're gonna blame the president for their plans they already decided on well over a year ago. It's crazy how people think these companies come to these conclusions the minute before they announce it. They don't. These price points and decisions are all finalized well before you hear anything about them, but now they got the convenient scapegoat to transfer all of their backlash off of them, and now Rockstar and Nintendo can pull their trap card on fan attacks and reveal that they just used Mirror Force, and now all the blame is on Trump instead. Like I said, it's a very good 4D chess move, and they're
try to manipulate me. Well, that's just not. Don't you? Well, don't.
All found leaked all over the internet.
That's just
Go ahead, look at those numbers
no more.
and tell me if any of those
you
sit
think?
right
Remark.
with you when
No
it comes
more.
to buying
What?
a
That's just.
single
Well,
video
don't.
game today.
Please
Also,
don't.
here's
No,
that
that's.
post from that
I wish I
Swedish
could say
retailer
that.
that
All
someone
right.
grabbed before it was taken down. Yep, that's a lot of
Delga-
money, fellas, for a single
So,
game. As one user tried their
I'm
best
the
to say, if
chairperson for the
nobody bought
society.
it,
Not
they'd
every
be forced
store
to
is
put the price
selling.
down.
People who
Oh,
buy
bless
tend to
your
want to
heart.
spend their money
Nobody will
there.
buy
He
GTA 6
outright
despite this.
refuses
They could
to.
shadow
What we
drop
need is
GTA
for you to
6 on
take.
us
We
right
cannot.
now. And the entire
His inventory
industry
must
would
be
go into
stolen.
complete,
It
utter
has-
chaos the moment it happens.
I hope you're more
The
successful.
Twitch streams would be flowing. YouTube
Thanks
videos
again
would get
for your
made
help.
suddenly, and articles
hadn't-
would
Good
get
day.
shut out of these websites if that suddenly
No
happened.
other
The
place to
sad
turn.
part
It's
is
you.
that when it comes
Hi.
to GTA 6 and Nintendo
Hi
fans
there.
in general, is
Well
that
met.
these groups of customers
Well
are
met.
some of the most, let's be real,
You
gullible
too.
and easily defensive
hope I
of
can
their
help.
preferred games or platforms. It
Good
is what
day.
it is. There's no way in hell that the Switch
I hope
2
I can
doesn't break all the records. I guarantee you,
Hello.
everything will sell out everywhere
What's going
for
on?
the
Yes?
Switch 2, games included, physically, of course.
I'm listening.
Because people seem to forget that
That's-
Nintendo's
well,
always
not
been
now.
the family-friendly
No. Oh, that's
company
great.
first. And their
That's a
primary target
great
audience
story.
is, and
Don't
always
tr-
will
that's
be,
real.
kids,
Oh,
which is
please.
why no matter what PC, PlayStation, or
Is
Xbox
that
are doing,
Don't try.
they can't reasonably
I see.
compete with Nintendo on this
Someone-
front.
I
because,
saw
let's
some
be
mud
real, it
crabs
is
by
much
the water.
easier for
Well
a child
met.
to comprehend and play
Tell me
something
more.
simple like a Switch, the same
What a-
way you
so-
likely
I
did
won't.
when you
You're
were younger
pathetic.
with the Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance, or the Nintendo DS too.
That's
How many
you're full of.
actual
No,
kids
you do me
know
too
that
much.
have a
You
Steam
win this
account
one.
And that's it. Now compare that to the amount of kids
That's
that
just
you've
stupid.
seen either playing
No,
a Switch
you're full
or
of it.
mobile
I won't
games on their
fight you.
parents' phones
You're
instead.
good.
It's not even close, and we all
Are
know
we
it.
seeing
Well,
Because
at least
Nintendo
they're
is
slow
in
and
a
not too
class all
It's
of
my
their own
pleasure.
and are uniquely
Tell
catering
me
to
more.
a wide demographic that everyone else can't really
What
tap
can I
into
interest
in a
you in?
similar vein. So while yes, they're
Be
charging
seeing you.
$20 to $30
Good day.
more than the current $60 to $70 standard
Certainly.
for Switch 2 games, and other titles like
see how you
Donkey
do.
Kong Bonanza are
Greeting.
following
What
suit,
can I do
we
for
know
you?
that kids want these games.
Tell me more.
And their parents obviously want to make their kids happy, so
Please,
they will
you
buy
should.
into it.
You're
And
wasting
look,
your
I love me
breath.
some Donkey
Get
Kong,
your
but I'm not
what?
selling my kidney to throw barrels in 4K. But that's the scary part, which is that Nintendo's setting a precedent here. If they can
Well
charge
done.
$90 for Mario Kart, what's stopping Sony
Good
from
day.
selling God of War's inevitable sequel for $100,
Hello.
if not
What
more?
is
or
it now?
Microsoft dropping
Can I help
Halo
you?
Infinite 2 for $120.
Certainly.
The industry's watching
I lo-
like
Oh,
hawks,
talk,
and
I
if gamers
doubt
eat up
it.
these prices, we're all doomed to a future
You're
where
too
budget
kind.
gaming
Where'd
means
you
selling
talk
your
tough to
car
me?
just to
I
enjoy the
love
latest
tough
Call of Duty
guys.
game day one with your friends. So
I
how does
doubt
this all
it. I
tank the
like
gaming
that
industry?
a
Well,
lot.
let's connect the dots. Higher prices mean
Facts,
fewer
thank
people
you.
can afford games. Fewer sales mean publishers then lead
Thank
harder
you.
into
Fact,
things like
I doubt it.
microtransactions, battle
That
passes,
works.
and even NFTs. Because nothing
If I
screams
had a
fun like a
question
$20
about heavy
skin
armor,
for your virtual
I'd
gun.
probably
And
ask
smaller
Varnado
studios
at
get
the best
crushed
defense.
Good to see you
because they
again.
can't
He knows
compete
a
with
lot about it.
Rockstar's or
Not
Nintendo's
us. He'll teach
budget.
others how to
Nintendo
use
is
heavy
a
armor.
market dominated
Nothing
by
I'd like to
soulless
talk about.
AAA
The priests
slop.
and priestesses
It's
of
like
the
the
temple of
of
development.
a dystopian movie where everyone is just eating gray mush and then calling it dinner. And that's the fear that I have, which is that the middle companies that, like I said, can't compete with Nintendo or Rockstar when it comes to budgets or hardware, are going to either have to play ball or simply die. But how can a AA game convince you that it's worth the same price as, say, GTA 6? You probably can't. Even if AA games, which usually retail for $40 to $50 depending on the game, will now have to at least raise their prices to $60, even $70. Meaning that the status quo for AAA pricing will now instead become the new normal for AA going forward instead. How is any of this sustainable when you include how expensive things are already outside of video games like rent, food, and more? You really can't. And like I said also, this pricing becomes the normal when companies know people won't pay $70 for their AA games or God forbid $90 for AAA. then yes, the alternative will be that they will make the difference by perhaps selling you the game for cheaper, but instead carving out content that would have been included day one instead as pre-order bonuses or microtransactions, battle passes, and more. Meaning that the game